Congressman's Chief of Staff. During the call, Congressman Bishop will be taking questions from participants like you. If you would like to ask a question, please press star 3 at any time. If you would like to subscribe to our newsletter, press star 6. Again, if you would like to ask Congressman Bishop a question during this live telephone town hall, please press star 3. With that, I will now turn it over to Congressman Bishop.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I'm glad we have this opportunity so that I can provide you with an update on the new Congress, which began on January 3rd, as well as the new administration, which started on January 20th, just about a month ago. I'd like to start by acknowledging that many of you have reached out to me personally and to my office to express your concern about recent developments. You've shared your concerns about the state of our government, the rule of law, the uncertainty for the future. You've shared stories about family and friends who've lost jobs, or are no longer able to get or fearful of losing important services like Social Security, VA benefits, Medicaid. Farmers have asked if FSA loans are being processed, and parents are worried about losing access to child care, jeopardizing their ability to go to work. I hear you, and tonight I want to help shed some light on what has been happening this past month. And members of Congress and I are really wanting to hear you and let you know what we're doing to address it and where we go from here. Since the president's first day in office, he's issued a battery of executive orders and directives which have fundamentally affected the lives of millions of Americans in adverse ways. While the stated intentions may appear to be good, helping to make the government more efficient, rooting out fraud, waste, and abuse, the way that he's gone about it has really gone against established law, and it's been unfocused, it's been blunt, chaotic, far-reaching, and has resulted in consequences that have harmed Americans and has really made our country less safe. Just in the past few weeks, the White House has floated the idea of making huge cuts to our armed forces, broadly slashing jobs, shuttering bases, and killing weapons programs, all but put our country at great risk. These are not things to be done simply by decree or by the stroke of a pen. Congress must deliberate and work with the president and with the administration to find ways to make our armed forces more efficient and effective. There are 13 major military installations in Georgia alone, and thousands upon thousands of military families that could be harmed if we don't act deliberately and together. We face real threats from Russia and China and Iran and terrorist groups. Not even congressional Republicans are on the same page with the president when it comes to cutting our military. The new administration has tried to bully federal workers into accepting deferred resignations, trying to get them to resign at a future date but stop working today and still get paid. Taking that approach would have the federal workers prevented from serving the people, yet taxpayers still having to foot the bill. Then there are the outright firings of the federal workers. We're talking about people who help process VA benefits and provide services to veterans, including the hotlines that help tackle the suicide endemic among our veteran community. Many of our federal workers at the VA and other departments and agencies are veterans themselves. Federal jobs have provided wonderful opportunities for our veterans to find work once they leave the military, including those who leave with disabilities. Yet the administration's attack on programs that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion have hurt our veterans. Other fired federal workers include the folks that run the programs that help our farmers so they can continue to produce the agriculture from season to season and can recover from recent natural disasters. We're talking about food safety inspectors who make sure our food is safe in the thousands of facilities across the country that process what we eat. We're talking about the folks that make sure the Social Security system is getting those earned benefits to our senior citizens. We're talking about IRS workers who help answer the questions and process the tax refunds and go after tax cheats that defraud our country. The administration fired federal workers responsible for fighting the bird flu and the outbreaks of the devastating American flocks that have been driving up the cost of chickens and eggs, and now they're frantically trying to hire them back if they can get them. The administration fired over 300 National Nuclear Safety Administration workers. These are the people that help protect our nuclear stockpile and protect our energy infrastructure. When it was caught doing this, the administration admitted that it had acted hastily, rashly, and that they needed to hire back many of these folks, but were now having trouble contacting them to do so. In the past month, we've seen a rash of air traffic accidents, yet the administration cut jobs from the FAA, which is already understaffed. Every one of us knows someone who's suffering from diabetes or heart disease or an autoimmune disease or some other affliction like cancer that medical science is working hard to fight. Yet this administration just tried to yank the funding from the CDC and the National Institute of Health, institutions that are vital in tracking and finding cures to these public health challenges that are hurting our families and are economically costly to our country. Penny wise and pound foolish to think blindly and broadly cutting funds for this vital research saves money or lives. These are just some of the examples of the drastic moves that have been made with little or no oversight from Congress, which serves as a check to balance the power of the presidency. I've been working with my colleagues, particularly those I work with closely on the House Appropriations Committee, to raise our concerns with the administration. I'd like to highlight two examples of the efforts I helped to lead. One of the major moves by the administration from day one was to force all federal workers to return to the office. While this sounds agreeable in concept, the reality is much more nuanced, and the administration's blanket policy ended up creating more problems than it solved. For example, with everyone ordered back to the office, some jobs that rely on being mobile and out in the field were uncertain of how to do their jobs. In some cases, there were not enough workstations to have everyone in the office at the same time. And the poorly thought out return to work order hit one community in particular that's near and dear to my heart, and that's military families. You may not realize this, and it was apparent that the administration did not, but many military spouses who often must move frequently and have other constraints due to their military family life are only able to work and have been able to find employment with the federal government because of the ability to work remotely or to telework. They were swept up in the administration's return to office policy. So I reached out directly to the administration to let them know how this was harming our military families and asking for an exemption for military spouses. I'm pleased to say that as of last week, the administration had to revise its policy to exempt military spouses from remote work and telework restrictions. I've also reached out to USDA to call the administration out on cuts to the Rural Energy for America program. Executive Order 14154 that the President signed directed agencies to halt payments appropriated through the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. The REAP program, the Rural Energy Assistance Program, provides essential assistance for farmers and small businesses to lower their energy costs. And this freeze leaves rural communities in limbo and will quickly and significantly cripple economic development in rural America, with a ripple effect that hurts businesses and jobs that indirectly benefit from REAP's investment in our communities. It also undermines the savings that these businesses were hoping to get by lowering their operation costs. Let's be clear. We can always find ways to make government more efficient, but we cannot do it by circumventing the law or disregarding the constitutional checks and balances that are the foundation of our country. I will always work with my colleagues in Congress and the administration to find bipartisan solutions to the challenges that we face. Make no mistake, the administration's actions in the past several weeks have hit close to home here in Middle and Southwest Georgia. Funds were frozen for a Southwest Georgia Regional Commission project to help our law enforcement departments update radio equipment so that they can coordinate when responding to crimes and emergencies in the 13 counties that the commission covers. There are the Department of Housing and Urban Development funds that are helping several of our boys and girls clubs in our district provide a safe and educational after-school environment for our children. And there's the CDBG grant program that helps cities all across Middle and Southwest Georgia, across Georgia, and across the country. So I understand your concerns, and I'm glad that we have this opportunity tonight to address your questions. I'd just like to take a brief moment to let the folks who've been joining our telephone town hall know that I'll be taking questions from you in just a few minutes. And if you'd like to ask a question, please press *3 at any time so that my staff can take your question and get you into the queue. I also want to touch on some positive notes as we begin the 119th Congress. As always, I look forward to working with my colleagues, including my friends on the Republican side of the aisle, to help improve your lives and the lives of all Americans. I recently re-registered the Congressional Military Family Caucus with Congresswoman Jen Kiggins, a Republican from Virginia. She joins me as the new co-chair of the caucus I founded over a decade ago to care for and to have the backs of our service members, just like they have our back in protecting our country. I look forward to hosting the annual Military Family Summit once again at the National Infantry Museum and Soldier Center here at Fort Moore. I also re-registered the Congressional Peanut Caucus with my co-chair from Alabama, Congressman Barry Moore. As the Democratic and Republican leaders of this group, we want to make sure that our colleagues know how important the peanut industry is to America, especially as we continue our work on the Farm Bill. The Four Country Caucus is a bipartisan caucus that supports our military, fiscal responsibility, and common sense solutions. I have rejoined that caucus also. But I also know that we have serious challenges ahead. The deadline to fund the federal government, either by extension or a full-year funding bill, is less than a month away, March 14th. We still have to get a farm bill done and are now over a year behind schedule. Last year, I voted with both Democrats and Republicans on the House Agriculture Committee to advance a draft farm bill. That bill was far from perfect, but I had hoped that by moving the bill forward, we could bring more voices to the negotiation table and get a final bill from both houses and get it to the president for a signature. And so I want to conclude this general overview and take the time we have left for questions from you. I know we will have more questions than we can answer in the time allotted, but please be sure to ask them. And even if we don't get your question tonight, I will do my best to answer it in the days and the weeks ahead, so please follow the instructions to submit your questions. Now, I'll ask my Chief of Staff, Kenneth Cutts, if you can get us started with the questions.
Thank you, Congressman. We will now be starting the question and answer portion of the town hall. If you have a question for Congressman Bishop, please press *3 and we'll get you in the queue. Again, please press *3 so we can take your question. We appreciate having you on the call tonight, but if you would like to receive newsletter updates from the Congressman, please press *6. Now let's take our very first caller. It will be Ms. Nancy Collins from Macon. Thank you for joining us tonight. Can you share your question with the Congressman?
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's not so much a question as it's something that happened today. I'm on the Social Security survivor benefits for my second husband, and I also am on Medicare and Medicaid. And as part of Medicare and Medicaid, I'm on. I have a Medicare Advantage plan through Aetna, and I also qualify for the what is it? The extra benefits, which is kind of like SNAP, I guess, through Medicaid. And today, that service was down. I don't know when it went down, but I went online to try and see what my available balance was before going to the grocery store, and it would not let me sign in. I was locked out, and when I went to the grocery store, there to the Kroger, there was a sign up that said that the benefit system was down, and so I wasn't able to utilize the money that I still had on my card. But when I finally, in the last 20 minutes, like half hour, I've been able to get back into my portal, the wallet as they call it, and it looks like 5% of my available balance is evaporated. It's just not there, and I double checked all my transactions, and it doesn't add up to what the balance is. And I'm just curious as to whether or not this is, is this part of Doge? Is this teenagers coming into my banking account or into my account through there? What's going on with these people?
Well, look, thank you for the. It's really not a question for your story. It's unfortunate, but the confusion, the chaos that was caused by the executive orders issued by the president in his first few days have caused all kinds of problems. And one of the directives was to shut down all of the websites and to cease communication with anyone without prior authorization from certain selected officials within those respective departments. And we had the intrusion on the payment system by what we're now calling surrogate president Elon Musk, who sent these teenagers, as you referred to them, into the payment system in violation of the law, in opposition to those people who were charged with protecting those systems, and allowed them to have access. What they did and how they did it, we were not able to control, and we're not sure the full extent of it. That has been ordered. They've been ordered to cease in that regard. However, we feel your pain. We feel your concerns, and we, as members of Congress, are doing everything that we can to express our complete disdain and opposition to it, and working with our partners on the outside with lawsuits to try to restrain this illegal usurping of power by unelected folks and by an administration that's acting in violation of the directives of Congress through the laws that have been enacted and signed into law.
Our next question will come from Miss Annie Lee. She's from Columbus, Georgia.
Yes, I'm a 80 years old black woman, and what I'm really, really concerned about, I'm concerned about myself with my Social Security, but I'm really, really concerned about banning education. And I'm looking at my great-grandchildren, because both of my grandchildren has finished college. So I'm really looking at them, my great-grandchildren.
Well, think your concern is very well taken with respect to education. What we are experiencing now is an attempt to really take control of the Department of Education, and there are strong, strong indications that this administration intends to eliminate the Department of Education. That will be tremendously adverse to the people of this country. A free education, an excellent education, is the escalator to upward mobility, and without it, our democracy suffers, and people will not be prepared to take care of themselves, to get adequate employment, and of course, we're going to do everything that we can to fight this. The Pell Grants, the scholarships, student loans, all of that are under attack. The Title I program for our school systems that have underperformed and need additional resources because they may be located in poverty areas and need additional help because those areas don't have the tax base to support the best of resources. That is being targeted. The diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, such as the TRIO programs, are being targeted for elimination, and complete diversity, equity, inclusion shutdowns are already in effect. Every program that has DEI, diversity, equity, or inclusion implications has been ordered by executive order to be shut down by the president. This is illegal, and that, of course, is under a challenge in the courts. There are some 40 or 50 cases now that are pending, and we're monitoring those every day. In the meantime, Congress has the power of the purse, and Congress makes the laws. The executive branch is charged with only executing those laws, not changing them. And so we're going to do everything that we can to fight for full opportunities for education for all of the American people. And I really understand and deeply share your concerns with regard to your grandchildren as well as mine.
Thank you.
Next question is going to be from Richard Price from Byron, Georgia.
Hey, good afternoon, Mr. Bishop.
Right.
Glad to hear from you. I have a question about having one individual with all of my data. I am a cybersecurity personnel. I have a master's in cyber, bachelor's in cyber, also a prior intelligence in the military, and I don't like having somebody or a group of individuals have my data like they do, my tax records and all that other information. What is going on, and how can I protect myself further from my information being leaked when it eventually will be leaked?
Thank you for that question. I am very disturbed by the actions that President Trump has taken to give his friends and his business associates unprecedented access to government records with sensitive personal and financial details. Elon Musk, who's the world's richest person, I understand, now has full access to personal information on every single American, including tax and Social Security information. He's instructing President Trump to illegally close government offices required by law and to break contracts and to end programs in direct violation of the laws that Congress has enacted. He and his team do not have the appropriate training. They don't have the appropriate clearance. They don't have the legal authority to access this critically sensitive information. Many of my colleagues now are demanding that House Republican leadership quickly bring up legislation to protect your private information and ensure that only duly authorized people that have the appropriate security clearances have access to the databases. We have to ensure that the so-called Department of Government Efficiency is at a bare minimum subject to the same accountability and the same transparency requirements that all other government agencies, including responding to Freedom of Information Act requests from the general public. Not only am I taking every opportunity through legislation and correspondence with the federal agencies to firmly remind President Trump's agency they're still subject to the laws of the land, but I support community action to use our third co-equal branch of government, the courts, to ensure accountability. Among the other challenges to the administration's actions, there's currently a lawsuit to block Musk team's unfettered access to view personal information, which I will be following with great interest. I know that many people are concerned about these unvetted individuals holding the keys to our country's most sensitive data. But the courts have been acting quickly and decisively, and I have faith that the checks and balances in our system will work, even if they're being stretched more than they have been in recent history. So thank you so much for that question, and we look forward to trying to get a stop to this unfettered access.
We would like to briefly pause the question and answer session to poll our audience today. You can respond by using the touchpad on your phone. This is the question. Have you noticed any effects from the new administration's actions in the past? Press number 1 if you believe it is taking longer to get assistance from federal departments and agencies, for example, USDA, FSA, IRS, etc. Number 2, community organizations that I work with or rely on are being impacted, for example, community health centers, Head Start programs, etc. Number 3, I have not felt any effects myself, but know of others who have been affected. Number 4, I have noticed more than one of the above. Or number 5, I do not know of any negative effects. So press 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Our next question will be from Miss Sandra Williams from Thomasville, Georgia. Williams?
Yes.
Williams, you're on with Congressman Bishop. What is your question?
Okay, my question is, my mother lives in a HUD-subsidized apartment complex with about 8 buildings with approximately six apartments in each building. She got a letter the other day stating that her rent was going up $300 a month. So if her rent goes up $300 a month, she's on disability, she's 84 years old, and all of the people that live in her complex are disabled or elderly citizens that live on a fixed income. I would like to know who is in charge of raising the prices through a HUD-subsidized program, and how can that be raised to that extent when those apartments have long since been paid for, and there's absolutely no reason for that rent to go up $300 a month. Elderly people that live there are on a fixed income, and there is absolutely no way that they can keep paying the prices that they're paying. So I want to know who is in charge of raising the prices and who owns the property.
Thank you for your question. I am very, very empathetic with people who are on Section 8. It is a program provided by Congress through the Department of Housing and Urban Development to provide affordable, accessible, habitable, decent, and clean housing for our citizens. and to make sure that they can afford it, those rents are subsidized by appropriations that Congress makes to HUD for that purpose. So the Department of Housing and Urban Development is in charge of that program, has guidelines for that program that have been put in place by Congress. The private landowners, the private landlords actually control the amount of the rent, but the subsidy by law should be at a rate that is affordable for those residents. Unfortunately, through the executive orders, through the shutdown of the grants that have been made possible by acts of Congress, as well as the shutdown of the payment system, which was temporarily delayed, has caused a lot of confusion, and I assume it has caused some concern with landlords. We will have to look at these on a case-by-case basis on particular properties because each housing complex has its own contract with the residents with a specified amount of rent. And those rents cannot be raised within that contract. And so the contract must have expired, and now they want to renegotiate. But that is a matter that has to be taken up and has to be enforced by HUD. And the new Secretary of HUD will have direct responsibility of that because that person is a part of the new Trump administration. So that will have to be addressed, and we will address that. If you will contact my office, we will go directly and try to help you. Where you're located? Where?
In Thomasville.
You're in Thomasville, so if you would contact one of our offices, either the Columbus office, the Albany office, or the Macon office, we will ensure that the property and HUD are following all of the applicable laws and regulations and ensure that there's no wrongdoing at this particular property. But it appears to be a problem, but we'll be happy to look into that for you.
Next question will be from Ms. Kathy Dooling. She's from Columbus. Dooling.
Yes, sir. My husband is retired. Both my boys are retired from the military, and I have a grandson that's in the Navy. My concern is that my youngest son is disabled, and he is a single parent of 3 small children. So if they mess with Social Security or with his Navy or his Army pension, what are they supposed to do? Who's going to help them?
Well, I want you to know that I and most members of Congress appreciate the service and the sacrifice of all of our military personnel, and particularly our veterans and those who have a disability. And we will do our dead level best to make sure that your son is not adversely impacted. So please know that fight will be ongoing, consistent, and fervent to make sure that he will not have any adverse impacts from what they're talking about. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and veterans benefits are sacrosanct, and we're going to do our dead level best to make sure that they are not touched.
I'd like to remind you, if you'd like to ask Congressman Bishop a question, to press star 3. We're going to take a brief pause for poll question number 2. This is the question: which of the following most concerns you? Press number 1. The administration firing thousands of civil servants without cause, no explanation of merit, and no assurances that the firings were made without understanding the possible harm to services, like for our veterans and senior citizens or national security, like personnel needed to maintain our nuclear power sites. Number 2, The administration firing over a dozen federal department inspectors generals who are responsible for independently auditing federal programs for fraud, waste, and abuse, and are also able to be held accountable to the president and Congress. Number three, the president not following the bipartisan law and withholding funds that were already obligated to our states, cities, counties, regional commissions, and other organizations for projects like providing law enforcement and first responders with equipment, jeopardizing water and wastewater infrastructure projects, and such. Number four, a private citizen like Elon Musk and his hired workers getting access to your personal identification, Social Security, and tax information without having to pass a background check themselves or the ability for Congress to question their actions. Number five, more than one of the above concerns me equally. Or number six, none of the above concerns me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Our next question is going to be from Miss Lynn Davis from Macon, Georgia. Miss Davis, you're on with Congressman
Yes,
Bishop.
thank you. My question is, why are they charging fees on debit cards? It was brought to my attention that debit cards are not allowed to accrue fees, but we are, and if so, how can we get our money reimbursed back to us?
Well, that would only be done through a lawsuit or through some determination that the banks who are processing that have done so in violation of the law. I believe that the past administration did everything that it could possibly do to reduce the fees and the costs of doing financial transactions that it could, with great opposition from the other side of the aisle. And of course, there is a cost to the use of credit cards, but having those fees be reasonable is something that we must insist upon. But the very agency, the Consumer Protection Agency that deals with limiting that, has been targeted and has been shut down by executive order. And of course, that is going to be attacked and challenged in the courts. And hopefully we will monitor that and we will be able to remedy that unlawful action. But you are very right to be concerned about it. I am concerned about it, and I share your concern, and you can rest assured I'll be doing everything that I can possibly do with my colleagues to correct that situation.
Our next question will be from Miss Ashion Keller. She's from Columbus. Miss Keller, you're on with Congressman Bishop.
Good evening, Congressman Bishop. I'm a teacher and I'm a mother, and I'm just concerned about so many things. But my son is a senior this year, and he's supposed to go to a HBCU, and I'm so concerned now about the funding, because I know this year he's received grants, and well, for the fall he's received some grants already and some scholarships. But I'm concerned that the HBCU is DEI, isn't it? And will that be targeted more than PWIs? That's my question.
Yes, every program in the government that has any diversity, equity, or inclusion mention or implication was targeted by the president's executive order in the first week of that he was in office. That will include HBCUs, and there are a number of programs that are covered at HBCUs that will definitely have an impact. And of course, it will have an impact on the vitality of our HBCUs. That's unfortunate, but we will be fighting that with every ounce of energy that we have, fighting it both in the courts as well as legislatively. We will be doing everything that we can do to make sure that access to education will remain available to each and every a person, regardless of their demographic. Many of the DEI initiatives play a critical role in ensuring federal support of historically black colleges and universities, and they provide essential funding for scholarships, for infrastructure, and research programs that directly benefit students of color, students who have certain disabilities, veterans. But with these executive orders rolling back DEI policies, HBCUs may face some significant funding cuts, limiting opportunities for students who rely on these institutions for upward mobility and academic success. But I have, and my colleagues, particularly the HBCU caucus, of which I'm a member in the Congress, we'll do our best to use the appropriations process to keep these programs funded. Over the past decade, we've been able to do a great deal to provide equity for our HBCUs. They had been left behind tremendously over the last 30 or 40 years, and we were able to add billions of dollars in support, research support, facility support, capacity grants, to try to bring them into a position to have the resources that can fully provide the best experience for the students who are attending there. We will be fighting to maintain what we've done and to try to increase that at the earliest possible time. But elections have consequences. As a result of the last election, Democrats who were very much in favor of those programs lost the majority. And we were unable to, we are now in a position where we don't have the votes and the legislative muscle that we once had to make these things happen. But we're going to be fighting it using every procedure that we can to slow down any kinds of cuts and to use the legal system through our friends in the private sector to maintain, to make sure that the law is followed and not violated, and that everyone has an equal opportunity to an education.
Our next question will be from Ms. Sheila Keene. She's from Macon, Georgia. Ms. Keene, you're on with Congressman Bishop.
Hey, thank you for taking my question. There are so many things that I'm concerned about. There's not enough time to really talk about all of them, so I'll keep my question kind of broad. I feel like that there have to be some moderate Republicans that are as concerned as the Democrats at this point with all of the unlawful things that are going on. And I understand that we're going through lawsuits and the courts it's working and things are getting turned back. But while we wait for those things to happen, which is the right way, people's data is already compromised. People are losing their homes. People are losing their jobs, and we're paying the price for that. So do you have moderate Republicans that you are working with to try to join forces with so that we can be a little bit bolder in our response to try to push back against all of these unlawful things while we wait for the lawsuits and the courts to fix things the correct way?
Yes. We have offered legislation to stop and to block this unlawful access to the data, the information, and that legislation, of course, is pending. But obviously, it has to pass both the House, the Senate, and it has to be signed by the president. Uh, we will try to push that legislation as far as we can push it, but more importantly, we're going to have to hear from the public. The members of Congress are elected by people, by voters, and those members of Congress will need to hear from their representatives and their senate. They will need to hear from their voters, the senators and the representatives, if they get that pressure and that they know how their constituents feel about it. I believe will perhaps be more likely to moderate the actions that are taking place by this out of control administration. But right now, it appears as if they are afraid, and they are afraid that they're going to be primaried and they will lose their positions. But I think that the only reaction is to put heat on them that they will lose their positions if they don't put some limits on what's going on. But yes, we are acting. We are trying to make the public aware of what's going on, and the public has to speak out, speak up, and notify their elected representatives that they are not happy with what's going on. And so I appreciate your question, and I appreciate your being incensed by what's taking place, because I too am very, very, very upset about it.
One last time, we would like to briefly pause the question and answers to poll our audience today. One of the Congressman's top priorities is making sure that the federal government's departments, agencies, and programs are working correctly for you. Please take a moment to press 1 if you would like to receive a call back from our district team for help with a federal department or agency. Next question will be from Ms. Sandra Hampton from Camilla, Georgia. Ms. Hampton, you are live with Congressman Bishop.
Good evening. Congress, you send so much money out to counties and places. You send them, but they don't do anything with the roads and things. We have problems getting in and out. It wash out, the buses don't want to come, and we pay taxes. I think they should be able to pay this road. They say it's not enough people on this road, but it's 13 houses. And they don't pay us some people road, and they ain't got but 1 or 2 houses on it.
I hear your concern, and I know that you want your road paved, and you want to be able to get in and out, especially when it's raining and those roads are slick. Yes, children there, the school bus can't get in to pick them up and bring them home. What we do at the federal government is we provide in Congress appropriations to the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Transportation will then send funds back, and you pay a motor fuel tax for gasoline that also goes to fund transportation for the roads. That money is sent to the states. The states then take that money along with the state money that they raise through the legislature, and they send that down to the local communities, to the cities and to the counties. It's your county commissioners, more than likely, unless you're within the city limits, that make the determinations about which roads to pave. So I wish that I could tell you that I could help pave that road, but that's a decision that has to be made by that county commission or by the local municipality. We provide the resources for them to be able to pave the roads, but they have to make the decisions about which roads to pave. And so you're going to have to apply pressure to your local county commission because they ultimately have that responsibility.
Okay, so we are coming.
let me just say, if it's an interstate highway, which is a federal highway, if it's a state highway, you go to the State Department of Transportation, your state board member in the second district. That would be Kathy Williams. However, if it's a county road or a local road, it's going to have to be handled by the local government, either the county commission or the city council municipality.
So we're coming to the end of tonight's telephone town hall. This will be our last question for the congressman. If you have a question that has not been answered yet, but you have spoken to one of our screeners, our office will do our best to provide you with a response in the coming weeks. So let's conclude tonight's question and answers with a question from Ms. Jacqueline Lynch from Columbus, Georgia. Ms. Lynch, you are live with Congressman Bishop. You can ask your question.
Hi, Congressman Bishop. First, I want to say, as a former military wife and the daughter of someone who served 24 years in the military, I appreciate your efforts on behalf of military spouses to try to allow them to maintain their positions, while they are remote and everything. I really appreciate that. My question is, out of concern for my children and even my grandchildren, the debt is atrocious. And what are you doing in Congress, and who are you working with to try to get that debt down? And shouldn't it take drastic measures to get us there?
Thank you very much for that question. One of the biggest threats to our national security is our national debt. We have got to be fiscally responsible in this country, or we will crumble from the inside economically. Our debt is much too high. We must rein it in. I got my political teeth cut in the Georgia General Assembly, where we have a constitutional requirement that the legislature cannot appropriate any more money than it expects to collect in revenue. And for that reason, Georgia is has the highest fiscal rating of any state in the country. The federal government does not have those restraints. So I am very much for a balanced budget, and I have signed on to legislation to compel a balanced budget. In the meantime, we have to spend for the needs of the people of our country, but we need to balance that with responsibility. We also need to insist that taxes that are due are collected. Unfortunately, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have for the last 15 or 20 years done everything that they could possibly do to handicap the Internal Revenue Service in its ability to collect taxes that are owed. There are $90 billion a year in uncollected taxes that are uncollected because we don't have sufficient IRS agents to actually undergo the enforcement and the collection. And just recently, with the freeze on employment and the executive order that eliminated the jobs of federal workers that were on probation because they were newly hired, some 6,000 Internal Revenue agents are now going to be without a job. That means that the $90 billion is uncollected in taxes that goes to create the debt that we have will not be collected. So I very much support a balanced budget. I support addressing our debt and reducing our debt to the domestic national product. However, unless we're able to empower the Internal Revenue Service by funding the federal workers who collect those taxes and forcing those billionaires who don't pay their fair share because they have sophisticated accountants and sophisticated systems that cannot compete, that with which the federal internal revenue can't compete. We won't be able to do it. So, one, we need to hire agents that can collect those overdue taxes, and two, we need to restrain our spending so that we are fiscally responsible.
And that will wrap it up for today's town hall. Thank you all for joining us. I would like to invite the Congressman to share some brief closing remarks.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, and I appreciate this opportunity to respond to your questions. I know that we were not able to get everybody's questions, so I'll do my best in coming days and weeks to follow up with you or have my staff follow up with you to provide answers and updates to the questions that you have put in the queue. Events like this help me to represent you better on Capitol Hill, and hearing your voices and getting your perspectives and knowing your stories allows me to work better with my colleagues to meet the challenges that we're facing today and in the months ahead. I always say that it's the squeaking wheel that gets the grease, and it's the crying baby that gets the milk. It's the information that we get from you that lets us know what it is that your needs and your concerns are, that gives us that empowers us to be able to address that issue. But if we don't know what it is, we can't address it. So thank you so much for reaching out and to expressing yourself on what your concerns are. If you ever need assistance or you want to reach out to me about an issue, always feel free to contact me at one of my offices in Albany, Columbus, Macon, or Washington, D.C. You can also visit our website to see the latest news that we posted online, and to email me if you prefer to reach out that way. I'd like to wish each and every one of you a good night. Thank you for being with us, and God bless you. I look forward to speaking with you or seeing you again real soon. Look forward to visiting your respective communities, which we do almost each and every weekend that we're home from Washington. I come home every week, and I find myself somewhere within one of the 30 counties somewhere during the weekend when I'm not in Washington, attending events, having meetings, and meeting and greeting members of the 2nd Congressional District. I love it. I look forward to it, and see you soon, I hope. Thank you very much, and good night.